Singapore, stability at a cost. It's easy to look at Singapore's economic performance and think, wow, they've cracked the code. The city-state has low inflation, a stable government, an AAA credit rating, a high GDP per capita, and a population that enjoys modern infrastructure and relative prosperity. It's the perfect example of what many economists call a miracle economy. But, like all miracles, it's more complex than it seems. The Singapore model works, but it works under very specific conditions. And when you pull back the curtain, you see a number of trade-offs that are rarely discussed. Let's start with inflation. Inflation is low, but why? Inflation in Singapore has remained remarkably low for the past 2 decades. Even during post-pandemic global inflation spikes, Singapore's core inflation peaked at around 5.5% in early 2023, before falling to 3.1% in mid-2024. That's low compared to the United States or Europe over the same period. Part of the reason is that Singapore imports almost everything, including food and energy. This might seem like a weakness, but it also means the government can directly influence prices through monetary policy and subsidies. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, doesn't set interest rates like the US Federal Reserve. Instead, it controls inflation by managing the Singapore dollar's exchange rate against a basket of currencies. It's a unique model that has worked so far, but this exchange rate model has a trade-off. The economy must remain export competitive and attractive to global capital. And to achieve that, Singapore needs to maintain an extremely business-friendly attitude, even if that means some uncomfortable concessions. Another point worth mentioning is that Singapore is a prosperous but not egalitarian economy. Singapore's GDP per capita will exceed $88,000 in 2024, placing it among the richest countries in the world. But that figure hides something important: income inequality. Singapore has one of the highest Gini coefficients among developed countries, 0.45 before taxes and transfers, and 0.37 after. This is higher than Japan, South Korea, and most European countries. A large portion of the population has modest incomes, while the top decile accumulates vast wealth, especially in finance and real estate. So yes, Singapore is rich, but not everyone feels rich. Now let's talk a little about the housing model. State-controlled, but capitalist. If Singapore is famous for anything, it's its housing. Around 80% of the population lives in government-built HDB flats. Sounds socialist, right? But here's the thing. These apartments are sold, not rented. Citizens lease them for 99 years and treat them as private property. This has 2 effects. First, it gives the average Singaporean a stake in the economy. The homeownership rate exceeds 90%, one of the highest in the world. Second, it inflates asset prices. Due to land scarcity and government control of supply, housing becomes an important store of wealth. And, as in China or Hong Kong, this creates pressure. Rising housing prices make young Singaporeans feel marginalized. The average household income is around $10,000 per month, but home prices often exceed $600,000, meaning affordability remains an issue, even in a highly planned system. Another point worth highlighting about Singapore that sets it apart from other countries is education, work, and the talent funnel. Singaporeans are among the most highly educated people on the planet. The country consistently ranks in the top 5 in the PISA rankings for math, science, and reading. Its universities, NUS and NTU, are world-class, but that academic success comes at a price. The system is extremely competitive. Students are steered toward academic careers from a very young age, and the pressure to perform well is intense. Burnout is common, and mental health is a growing concern. Furthermore, there is a 2-tiered labor market. Well-paid professionals, especially in technology, finance, and medicine, do well. However, service workers, delivery drivers, and cleaners, many of whom are foreigners, earn much less. Approximately 1 in 3 people in Singapore is a non-resident. These migrant workers are essential to the economy, but they have few rights and little chance of obtaining permanent residency. Therefore, while the education system creates a top-notch local workforce, the overall economy still relies heavily on imported labor. The role of government: efficient but dominant. Singapore is a democracy, technically, but the People's Action Party, PAP, has been in power since 1959. That's more than 60 years of uninterrupted rule. It controls most of parliament, the media is tightly regulated, and civil dissent is minimal. Many Singaporeans sacrifice political freedom for stability and efficiency. The government functions like a corporation. Ministers receive high salaries to prevent corruption. Policies are based on data. Urban planning is long-term. But this also means that opposition voices rarely gain traction. Political criticism exists, but it is tightly controlled. So yes, the system works, but it only works because it maintains a level of central control that might not be acceptable in other democracies. Now, we must address a fundamental point: a strategic location and strategic neutrality. Geography is destiny, and Singapore has achieved this. Located at the crossroads of global trade between the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea, Singapore handles around 20% of the world's container transshipment volume. It is a major financial, maritime, digital, and increasingly geopolitical center. The country walks a tightrope between China and the United States. It hosts logistics for the US Navy, but maintains strong ties with Beijing. It supports the world order, but never publicly takes sides. This neutral stance allows it to do business with everyone. But as tensions between the United States and China increase, that balance becomes more difficult. The cost of stability. The Singapore model is widely admired, but it only works because the population accepts certain concessions. Limited political freedom in exchange for efficient governance. A strong focus on meritocracy, which can be ruthless. High housing costs offset by subsidized healthcare and pensions. A small population constantly competing in global markets. And perhaps most critical, control. The government owns land, regulates free speech, and plans society. That kind of control is unacceptable in most countries, but in Singapore, it's part of the social contract. The future, a model or a mirage? So where does this leave us? Is Singapore the future? In many ways, yes. It's clean, safe, smart, and stable. But it's also the result of very specific conditions: a small population, a strong central government, a strategic location, and a culture that prioritizes collective success. It's not easy to export. You can't simply copy Singapore, but you can learn from it. Its unique approach to inflation, real estate, migration, education, and governance offers inspiring and sobering lessons. Because if Singapore proves anything, it's that stability doesn't come for free. It's built, carefully, constantly, and always at a price. If you got to this part of the video, thank you for watching it completely. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Don't forget to comment and share the video. And remember, your opinion is important to me.